What's up, everybody? What's going on? It's Julian Gordon here. How you feeling? How you feeling? We gotta talk. We gotta talk. I got something to share with y'all. It's been on my mind for a minute, given the current conversation in our political environment. Normally, I don't get political. I don't consider myself reactionary. I'm a proactivist, but there's a lot on my mind, and I just had some things to share and say that I thought would be helpful to the conversation as we are hearing thought leaders, quote unquote thought leaders, shape the conversation in this particular environment. So, wanted to talk about who are the real slaves? Who are the real slaves? We're about to go in. Let me know if you're here. Just say hello. Let me know where you're from, where you're at. Who's here? Who's here? This is spontaneous. I don't know how many people are going to join this thing, but yeah, we're about to go in. I'm gonna hit this from different angles because it's time. It's time to get free, y'all. No, it's not even time to get free. It's time to be free, and we got to figure out how to do it in the midst of the belly of the beast. And so, yeah. What's up, cousin? What's up, Nardia? You and J.A.? Rocky Mount in the house. I got family in Rocky Mount. I used to spend summers out there. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. What's up, Ty? Tilda? Beautiful, beautiful. So what do you think about Ben Carson's comments? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? How you feeling about him? Again, I said before, I am not a reactionary. I'm a proactivist, and so normally I don't respond to things like that. Otherwise, given the nature of the environment that we're in, if you react to everything, you'll just be constantly reacting and never actually living out your life, and that is not freedom whatsoever. I am all about people being free, and there's times where we gotta march and we gotta show power in numbers, but it's time to get free, and there's a more direct way to get free than the models that we've been actually using to activate, right? And it's going to mean coming together. But first and foremost, it all starts up here. It all starts in the mind. I like to tell people that, a lot of us out here giving our 2 cents and things of that nature. But why give your 2 cents away when you have a gold mine? When you have a gold mine, you have gold in here. Educated people, smart people. And this isn't just a black thing. This is for everybody, right? You have a gold mine, and we're selling our time for wholesale to organizations and companies and to a system that doesn't really believe in us, right? And that doesn't value us. And it's time to just step up and start stepping into our power, into our true lineage. For those of you who are African American watching this, our history does not start in 17 whatever when they brought us over on slave ships, right? And I won't even say us, right? Those are our ancestors, but our lineage doesn't start there. Our lineage comes from freedom, right? I'm not a descendant of slaves. I'm a descendant of a free people. I'm descendants of divine people, and and by that I don't mean just black people from Africa are divine. I'm talking about all of us come from a creator. That's where my lineage is. It's divinity. Just as this shirt says right here, made in God's image. That's my lineage right there. So just putting things in perspective. This is not about race, but it's a very racial conversation, a very cultural conversation, but this is not about race whatsoever. So let's talk real quick about who is the real slaves? That is the question. That is the question. Who is the real slave? And the way I think about a slave, the way you can see it's an acronym that I came up with. And the acronym is a slave is someone who is steadily living above the value they've earned. Steadily living above value earned. A slave is steadily living above value earned. So what does that mean? I'm going to break it down on two planes, one economic, the other one spiritual. So on an economic plane, that's very clear. If we go look at your net worth right now, if you have more debts than you have assets, if you have more liabilities than you have assets, then you are steadily living above the value that you've earned, right? And so that's from an economic standpoint, and that's straightforward. That means that you are earning some sort of money from an employer through clients, through entrepreneurship, but our desires, we aren't able to control them in such a way that we are compelled to spend our money at faster rates than we're able to take that money in, right? We are compelled to spend, and as a result of doing that over time, you end up with debt, you end up with bad credit scores, and you end up in a very terrible predicament where you're paying credit card interest and you're paying double, triple, etc. for the exact same things that you could have got if you were just a little bit more patient, or actually not even just being a little bit more patient, but actually stood in your power and commanded your true value in the marketplace. So for those of you just now getting here, a slave means steadily living above value earned. Now, here's the thing. We're actually incentivized to earn more. And I'm going to break this down for you. All of the world's most successful people, they actually created more value than they've taken. All of the world's most successful people have actually helped other people, right? And so they are able to capture value in the form of income from others for the good that they've actually created in the world. You can't name one successful person that didn't create more value than they took. That didn't create more value than they took. Somebody who is in debt is trying to take more value than they've actually created, right? Somebody who is in debt is simply trying to take more value than they've actually created. And so that presents a problem, and that manifests in a life where you feel bound. And when you feel bound, you do not feel free, right? And so that's slave from an economic standpoint, right? If we looked at our assets and subtracted our liabilities, if that number is negative, then you're probably feeling very bound right now. And that is not the goal. That is not the goal. You were too smart, you were too brilliant, you were too hardworking to be in that particular situation. All right. So I want to take it up a notch, and I'm going to take it up a notch, and I'm going to take it up to. So actually, before we do that, how are you doing financially? And I know it's Facebook. I know you got people watching, but how do you feel you are doing financially? Do you feel bound? Do you feel free? How do you feel financially right now? Just maybe on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 to 10, how do you feel about your personal finances? And a millionaire could feel a 3 about their personal finances. So that doesn't really matter, right? So on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel about your personal finances and your choices right now? Just checking in, checking in. You don't have to say what you're earning or how much debt you have, just on how did you feel. It's just a feeling about your finances. On a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel about your finances? Cool, 5. That's all right. It just means there's room for growth, right? You learn from the past and you move forward. Cool. I would say that for me, my finances, I feel like I'm at an 8. I feel like I made some good decisions. I'll tell you where my gap is. My gap is in actually extra cash that I have sitting in banks that don't care for my people too much, or don't care for any American citizen, let alone African American people or black people. I have some of it sitting there. I've transferred some to certain banks that support our communities and credit unions, so I have different accounts, but I still have cash in some of the bigger banks because of my ability to access it through my debit card or when I need an ATM. But that's where I have room for growth. Also, I want all of my money to be in circulation. Money is called currency for a reason. It's supposed to have a current, right? When you look at a river, it has a current. When a river does not have a current, it becomes a swamp. And when you have a swamp, negative things start to breed in that environment. When the economy crashes, what happens is people get fearful, they hold on to their money, and it no longer has currency. And therefore, it's not flowing freely through the hands of various people, through various businesses, and that's what causes things to die. Right? And so I know that I can do a better job of I do have a family to take care of, and yes, you should have an emergency fund, but I want to find out what my balance is, what my ratio is, to make sure that my money stays in flow, and that it never is stagnant. It's invested in people and ideas that I believe in, that I care about. Whether I can it be guaranteed a return or not, I want my money to constantly be in flow, of course, with an emergency fund in case of a negative situation that was unexpected happening. I want my money to constantly be in flow. So that's where my gap is. Okay. So cool. So I want to take this up one notch in terms of who is the real slave. Who is the real slave? So if we take the definition that I said of a slave, which is steadily living above value earned, and we look at the transatlantic slave trade, well, what's interesting about this is that the true slave in this particular situation is not the person who was getting whipped. It is not the person who was in the cotton fields. The person who was steadily living above the value that they earned was the slave master. They are the real slave in this whole predicament. Steadily living above value earned, right? Not paying their quote unquote employees in this case the fair amount that they deserve. Free labor. So that may be fine on an economic plane, right? That may be fine on an economic plane for a slave master to be taking advantage of cheap labor, and that is still continuing today in different ways, from sweatshops to day laborers to all kinds of ways where that is occurring, right? But and people benefit from it. Big companies benefit from it. People that don't respect people benefit from taking advantage of labor in that kind of way. But here's where it gets really scary, not for us, but for them. And that is when you take it on a spiritual plane. When you take it on a spiritual plane. Again, slave, steadily living above value earned. There's going to be implications for people on a spiritual plane who try to take more from life than they give. There will be implications for people who try to take more from life than they give. Our life was given to us freely by some divine source, some divine energy. And as a result, we are supposed to give of our life freely. But there are people, for whatever reason, oftentimes because they are disconnected from their divine source, that they seek to hoard money, resources, material wealth, and things of that nature, which we all know don't go with you. We all know end up fading, right? And don't last, right? They mold, they rot, they evaporate. And so, again, there's a spiritual implication. So you can be wealthy on an economic level, but poor on a spiritual level. And I'm not talking about any particular religion or whatnot. But the way I think about life is that you are here to actually give what you've been given. And you're supposed to give freely of that with the life that you've been given. Those are your gifts. You're given a gift, and therefore you were supposed to reciprocate that and give more gifts. But the real slaves are the people who are navigating this world in a lot of different places, a lot of different companies, all different races, all different economic classes, who are navigating the world where they are trying to take more from life than they give. They are trying to take more from life than they give. And if you're taking more from life than you give, where does this taking go? Where is it going? It's going and it's being hoarded, which means it's being stagnant, which means it's not flowing through, the good is not flowing anymore. You've cut off the flow by taking more than you created and more than you quote unquote deserve. And so this is where the real slave comes from. How this word got attributed to a particular demographic of people, I have no clue. Because the real slave, from a spiritual standpoint, maybe not an economic standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint, is the person who is taking more from life than they are giving. And if you look at people who are doing that historically, who has done that, I think you'll find a different people being labeled and defined as slave a lot differently than what has traditionally been the case. I am an African American man, but I do not descend from slaves. I descend from a divine source. My history, my lineage goes back way beyond that. As I said before, this shirt that I'm wearing, I just happen to be wearing it, made in God's image, that is my lineage. That's where it traces back to. That is everybody's lineage. It's not a black thing. It's not a white thing. That is everybody's lineage. And so that's where I am reminded of my wealth. That is where I'm reminded of my royalty. That is where I'm reminded of why I'm here. And that's what I go to. And this is how I know that I am not a slave. I never have been a slave. Neither have my ancestors been slaves. Because the people that I descend from, they have always sought to give more to life than they've taken. They've always sought to give more to life than they've taken. They have not approached it the other way around. And there's a particular demographic of people, not a racial demographic, but they're just subsets of people and individuals who, for whatever reason, have navigated this world and this life where they are seeking to take more from life than they give. And it's sad to see. A lot of people get hurt when when these people get into positions of power, and all it is a misunderstanding of who they actually are and where they actually come from. And when you feel disconnected from your spiritual source, whatever that means for you, we can have a tendency to try to take, and hoard. From a Christian standpoint, if any of you read the Bible, you know the story of the manna. What occurred when the Israelites were in the desert, they were getting this manna, and it was coming down daily. And they were told not to keep it, otherwise it would spoil, right? But they didn't trust. They didn't trust this divine energy that is going to provide for us, the divine source that is going to provide for us always. And as a result, they tried to hoard, and then it rotted, right? And so the same thing happens with money. When you don't trust this energy, this divine source, whatever you call it, your creator, what tends to happen is that we start hoarding, and that is when the shift occurs, where we end up trying to take more from life than we are given. This is really important to understand for all of us. If we want to move from slave mentality to master mentality, and not the slave master mentality, not that master, but self-mastery, we have to understand that if we were created by a creator and we are created here for a purpose, then we have to trust that our creator is going to give us everything that we need to succeed at that purpose. And it's going to be abundant. I'm a living demonstration of that. I pursued my purpose. I left my job on January 9th, 2009, the worst point to do it in the past 75 years of our economy. And my company has continued to grow every year after that. Right? The worst time in our economy. Everything, stock market tickers were red. It was at its bottom. It was literally at its bottom when I left. But I moved out on faith. Because why would your creator create you? Why would your creator create you? Give you a purpose and then not give you everything you need to actually succeed at it? That would be cruel. That would be cruel for a creator to create you, give you a purpose, say go do this, and then not give you everything you need to succeed at that purpose. That doesn't make any sense. But where we lack and where we become vulnerable and where we start adopting slave mentality is where we stop trusting that creator, that energy, that source, and we start relying on our own will, our own effort, and then we start getting in survival of the fittest, me against the world, dog eat dog. When we start getting into that mentality, that's when things start to get flipped. And when you have a couple generations going through that and they breed offspring, then this is what we start to experience as our political environment, or not just our political environment. The political environment is just a manifestation of all of our internal environments, right? And so there's a huge disconnection from where we come from and who we actually are and what we're actually capable of. and there's an opportunity now for us to think more like masters. There's an actual path to freedom. There's a path to freedom. And the way I define that path to freedom, it all has to do with mastery. Again, not slave master, but starts with self-mastery. That is knowledge of self, knowing who you are, right? Your gifts, your talents, your strengths, right? This is all internal. That's the first step. The next step is skill or subject mastery. Skill or subject mastery. Right? Your college did not guarantee that you would have a skill or subject mastery. Just because you had a major, if I stopped you on stage at graduation and said, please lecture for 1 hour on what you majored in, most people couldn't do it, right? Most people couldn't do it. So just because you went to college and went to good schools, and even if you got a master's degree or even a PhD, if you can't stand on stage and speak powerfully for 1 hour about something, then you probably have no subject mastery. I believe that skill mastery is actually the world. Subject mastery is nice, right? It's know-how. There's TED Talks on it, etc. People are just sharing their knowledge about a subject. But can you actually go create a result in somebody's life? Can you go create a real result in somebody's life? Can you go help somebody? That's what I mean, right? I said the world's most successful people, how do they become successful? They help other people become successful. There's no trick. There's no secret. If you want to be successful, go help other people become successful. So it's really important for us to develop our subject or skill mastery. So first is self-mastery. That's knowledge of self, knowing who you are. Then there's skill mastery, which is your intellectual capital. Then there is your mastermind. Your mastermind is your social capital. This is who you know and who knows you. This is your networks up, down, across, and out. When you're in a bind, this is the people you can call and your network up. The people who are going to open the doors. The people who are going to send that letter of recommendation. This is your mastermind, right? And then finally, the fourth step, the path to freedom, is money mastery. Because if you have mastered self-mastery, you have skill mastery, and you have a mastermind, I guarantee that money will flow into your life in a variety of different ways. Right? And some of us have an A+ in one area and a C- in the other. And the beautiful thing about this is that you are in full control over your self-mastery. You are in full control over your skill mastery, and you are in full control over your mastermind and who you decide to make yourself available to, who you decide to run with, and the company you keep. You get to control all that. And when you take care of those three things, I guarantee that money will flow into your life. And this isn't about a get rich quick scheme. This is not even about you building a business. I'm just certain that when you grow those other three forms of capital, your personal capital, your intellectual capital, and your social capital, I guarantee that financial capital will flow into your life. But once that financial capital flows into your life, right, you have to know how to use it wisely. Many of you, whether you're Christian or not, have heard the parable of the talents, right, where these three individuals were given resources and they used them differently. And the person who had given them the resources treated them differently. Actually, the person who went and reinvested all of their talent and came back with double, or maybe it was more than that, they got double after, right? Whereas the person who just took their talent and buried it in the sand and then brought the same talent back, they didn't get rewarded. They didn't get rewarded. So who are the real slaves? The real slaves, and this is the new definition, the real slaves are the people who are simply trying to take more from life than they give. Simply trying to take more from life than they are actually giving. When I look at Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, yeah, they're in the 1%, and I'm not mad at them for being in the 1%. They created a lot of value in the world. Right? So this whole Occupy Wall Street thing that was occurring, oh, it's 99% versus 1%. No, there's good people in the 1%. And when I look at the demonstration that Bill Gates and Warren Buffett are doing with this, I forgot what it's called. They're actually reaching out to other millionaires and billionaires and getting them to donate, 95% of their wealth by the time that they die, right? That is somebody who is seeking to give more to life than they've taken from it. Right? Whereas there's other people who are also in the 1% who are simply trying to take as if this world is here to be conquered by man. That's not the goal here. That's not the goal whatsoever. And when you are a slave to your desires, you are a slave to greed, when you're a slave to all these negative vices, that's where the real slave is. So when you think of slave, do not think of black people. Do not think of African Americans when you think of slave. That is not who the real slave is. When my great grandparents in North Carolina were picking cotton, they were actually giving more than they were taking. So the real slave in that relationship, in that particular relationship, was the slave master who was simply trying to take more than they were giving. And so please do not associate slave with African Americans. Ben Carson, please do not associate slave with immigrants, because these are not the real slaves. From an economic standpoint, that may be the case when you look at it in that way, but this is about more than money. Because from a spiritual standpoint, we are here to give more to life than we've taken. And the real slaves are the ones who are simply trying to take more from life than they are giving. So that's really all I had to say. It was on my heart. It was on my mind. I was just I'm tired of slave being attached to African Americans, right? It's completely wrong. It's not it's completely wrong. It shouldn't be attached to immigrants. There's a lot of people who it shouldn't be attached to, yet for some reason that has become the brand, no pun intended, of treating people of color like cattle, right, and branding us as slaves. We aren't the slaves. As James Baldwin said, I'm not the nigga. I'm not the nigga here, right? I'm not the nigga. So I hope you found this valuable. I've been thinking about freedom a lot lately. Actually, I did a post this morning on a Facebook Live post on my page this morning. Are we free yet? All of us here, I've seen some of the names come through. Kevin, Kazi, Wob. Are we free yet? A lot of us have checked off all the boxes: be good, get good grades, go to good school, get a good job, and make some good money. And even after checking off all those boxes, there's a lot of people who I know who still don't feel free. So if we did all the things that we were supposed to and we still don't feel free, then how do we get free? If it wasn't school, if it wasn't that corporate job, if it wasn't entrepreneurship, if it wasn't making a lot of money, what's actually going to get us free? And so I did that video. It's actually over on my Facebook page, facebook.com/Julian Gordon, Jullien Gordon. It's there. And it was sparked by my daughter being home sick for the past 2 days and me having the freedom to simply be here with her for those 2 days. And I know that everyone in the world doesn't have that luxury, because they'd have to fear an employer firing them or fear running out of vacation days and things like that, just because their daughter is sick and they need to stay home with them because there's nowhere else to send your daughter when she's sick. So I'm moving towards freedom. I'm not rich, but I do feel free. I'm not rich, but I do feel free. I do have more than most because of what I've been blessed with and what I've been able to create and how many people I've helped. But I don't consider myself rich, but I am free, and I want that for everybody. I want that for absolutely everybody. So my daughter is asleep. I think it's one of those healing sleeps where she's gonna be knocked out until tomorrow morning, and she will be up and ready. I felt like I got played a little bit today because by noon she was already feeling better. So she might have pulled a fast one on me just to stay home. 2.5 years old, smart as heck. So I normally don't do this. I normally don't give up my evenings. Normally it's for family. But my wife is putting on a show called White Noise. Check out her Facebook page. And so she's rehearsing. So Jada's asleep. My wife is rehearsing. And I just thought I'd reconnect with you and share with you what I've been thinking as this conversation about Ben Carson has been going viral. And this notion that slaves, this word slave, should be the furthest removed from a lot of brown people as possible, because it does not define us. It's never been who we are. We've always been on this earth, as far as I know, simply trying to give more than we take. And so let's just be clear about who is the real slave. Slave, steadily living above value earned. Somebody who is steadily living above value earned. If you have debt, then you got to evaluate, because you have put yourself in a position of slavery. If you have significant debt, credit card debt, those are your choices. With the exception of health care, so you having a health issue that ended up costing more than you could have anticipated, any kind of credit card debt that you have that is hurting you, those are your choices, right? So this isn't about someone else enslaving you. It's not about banks. It's not about the credit card companies. At some point, you sign on the line. At some point, you swipe that credit card because you were a slave to your desires. I've been guilty of it too. If any of you know about my car being stolen at gunpoint at the age of 18, I was a slave to my desires. I was a slave to people pleasing. I was a slave to trying to prove people wrong. And that got me caught up. And so ask yourself, what kind of things are you a slave to? Today, in today's world, it's not about being a slave to people. It's not. It's about being a slave to these vices that are inside of us. Some of us are slaves to Facebook and social media. Some of us are slaves to caring what other people think. Some of us are slaves to drugs and alcohol. Some of us are slaves to work. I've been there. Some of us are slaves to lust, women, to guys, to sex. Some of us are slaves to shopping. It's not about real people today. There's no, there are some exceptions of people actually enslaved because of other people, but most of for the people that I know, it's really about being slaves to our own thoughts, our own old beliefs that may have served us back in the day, may have served us at one point, but are no longer serving us. And how do we break free from those beliefs and step into a new way of living, being, doing, and having in today's world? Yes, slave. It's not black people. Please do not ever associate slave with black people. We do not descend from slaves, right? We descend from the Creator. All of us, everybody who is here, we all descend from the Creator. That is our legacy. I will repeat that over and over and over again. As I said on my shirt, made in God's image. That's where I come from. My history does not start 400, 500 years ago. My history goes way beyond that, right? And we all have to reconnect with that because none of us are meant to be slaves. We are all meant to be masters, right? And we got to pursue the path of self-mastery, and that will get us to freedom. Right? That will get us to freedom. And as I move towards freedom, I'm trying to take as many people with me. Each one, teach one, lift as you climb. That is my goal. And I've gotten really committed to that. Like I said, I've been thinking about freedom a lot lately. And so you'll probably see me on here ranting about freedom and how we actually get it. How we actually get it, not one at a time, but actually get it together. I don't think it looks like revolution. I don't think it looks like burning down the White House. I don't think it looks like marching. I don't think it looks like the way we may have been used to or the way that we may have approached freedom in the past. The revolution is within. This is why it will not be televised, because the revolution is within. It's within each one of us. To overcome our egos, to overcome our worry, to overcome our fears, to overcome our doubts. All of these negative thought patterns that no longer serve us, that's where it actually begins. That's where freedom begins. And once we feel free within, then guess what? The only thing you can do is manifest without. It will have to manifest externally. But we all got a lot of shit that we're dealing with internally that is blocking us. Right? Again, it's not people blocking us from being free anymore. It's our own selves. And I don't like to say that we are our worst enemies. That I'm not my enemy, but there are just thought patterns that I have that I need to release and need to replace with new ones that are actually serving me and that are actually work in today's world, right? So just wanted to share this. I don't know. I don't have a particular end in mind. I don't know. I haven't done a Facebook Live in a long time. I did one earlier today, but if you ever, I don't know if to ask for questions. I don't know what to do right now. But I hope this was helpful. Give some love if it was helpful. Share it if it was helpful. If this perspective, this definition of slave was helpful to you, please share this. Please comment. Let me know. Was this helpful? Was this helpful? So if it wasn't helpful, I'll stop doing it. I'll keep my thoughts to myself. But again, I don't want to be free by myself. That's not the goal. It's for us all to be free. And so I have a crew that I'm trying to take with me. But in addition to my blocks, they have blocks too. And so it's hard to actually move together. Um, but I'm trying to free as many people as I can. Modern day Harriet Tubman, I don't know what you want to call it. I'm trying to free as many people as I can. Harriet Tubman, what she said was, I would have freed more, but they didn't know that they were slaves. I would have freed more, but they didn't even know that they were slaves, yo. Oh man, that's crazy. That's crazy. Come on, let's get free. Oh, I'm fine here with Massa. I get 3 meals a day, and I get to sleep for 4 hours, and I got a roof over my head. It leaks sometimes, but I'm doing just fine right here. What you mean get free? I ain't lived like this. I just had some porridge yesterday. I get porridge once a week. I get 2 pennies a day for the work I do. Massa's good to me. He compliment me. He hit me sometimes. Mm-mm. Uh-uh. No, 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 no. And yeah, I'm saying that jokingly, but and we actually live in it. I know people enslaved. I know people making 6 figures enslaved to their job, to their company. Yeah, I know people 6 figures who are enslaved. It has nothing to do with income. It's all a mentality. It starts with mentality first. That's part of the trap. Is I'm gonna pay you a lot. That's called the overpaid trap, where I pay you more than you believe you're worth. The overpaid trap means I pay you more than you believe you're worth. Because what happens if I pay you more than you believe you're worth? Then you never leave and you'll do anything that I ask you to do. You'll work on weekends. You'll leave your family. You'll move to a whole nother city that you don't want to be in. You'll travel all across the country for me. If I pay you more than you believe you're worth, if you believe you're only worth $50 an hour and I'm paying you $100 an hour, you think you're getting over on me, but I'm actually getting over on you because you will never leave me because you don't believe that you can go get $100 an hour from somewhere else. Who's the slave in that situation? Trying to break down the game for y'all. I've been blessed to get free, to be free. I can dictate how my day unfolds, and this is how I think about freedom, and this is how you can really test your freedom. Who here feels like they can dictate what they're going to do in the next 1 second of their life? All of us, right? All of us. Hopefully, you feel like you can. I can choose what I'm going to do in the next 1 second of my life. Okay? Watch this. Who of us here feels like we can dictate what we're going to do with the next 1 minute of our life? Probably most people here, right? But who here can dictate what they're going to do with the next 1 hour of their life? Given that it's the evening in the United States, most people say, yeah, I get to choose what I do in the next hour. If I want to watch a movie, I'm going to watch a movie. If I want to go eat, I want to go eat, right? If I want to go lay down, I can go lay down, okay? But here's where people start falling off. Who here can do whatever they want with the next 24 hours of their life? Well, I can't just take off work without telling my boss and or I'm an entrepreneur, but I got these meetings tomorrow and I got this to-do list that's calling me. Like, no, I can't take off a day. So you start losing a lot of people then. Then you think about who here can actually dictate what they're going to do with the next 72 hours, the next 3 days of their life. And you're like, Julian, if it was a Friday, I could have a 3-day weekend, but I can't do that in the middle of the week. I can't just take off the next 3 days just like that, right? And if I did, I could do it only once, but that would be it for the rest of the year. A lot of people fall off. Then you say, who here can dictate the next 1 week of their life? There's millionaires who can't even dictate the next week of their life. Their life has actually been so planned out for them in terms of meetings, travel, this and that they can't even dictate the next week of their life. So again, this is not about money. This is about power. Internal power, not power over somebody. This is about knowing our power. And then you say, who here can dictate the next month of their life? Right? Could just shut down for 1 month and be all right. Most people fall off. So it's not, I'm not saying this to say that it's just about time freedom, right? I'm not just saying it's about time, not about time freedom, and that freedom is about having no commitments. That's not what we're talking about, because there's a lot of brands of freedom out there that people are showing on Facebook. Look at me, I'm free, I'm traveling the world, I'm making all this money, I got this nice car, I got this house, I got these girls. There's that kind of brand of freedom. No, I'm not talking about freedom with no commitments. Those are usually millennials, they're single, they're not married, and then the moment they have a kid, all that just goes, all that goes. The moment they have a real commitment, a real commitment. And it's fine to move through life and not have kids. I chose to have a child, but it's fine to move through life. That's a choice, and that's cool. But that's just one brand of freedom. We have to ask ourselves, how am I going to be free and actually enjoy my average day? Not free on some vacations, not free 1 week out of the year, not free here and there. How are we going to be free in our average day? In our average day. Do you feel free in your average day? The day that you have to live more than any other day, the day that you live 150, 200 days a year, do you feel free in that day? I'm not just talking about weekends or some vacations and trips. How do we feel free in our average day? I call it the perfect average day. Or that's what I learned from one of my mentors. The perfect average day. If you had to lay out your perfect average day, a day that you were going to live over and over and over again, what would it look like? What would that perfect average day look like? Right? Lay it out from the time you wake up to the first thing you do when you wake up, to how many hours you work, what you're going to eat for breakfast. Are you going to exercise? You're going to kiss, wake up next to somebody and give them a kiss? You're going to take your kids to school? You're going to have kids at all? What kind of car are you driving? When are you going to eat lunch? When are you going to leave for work? What are you going to do in the evening? You playing intramural sports? You hanging out with your boys? Are you hanging out with your girlfriends? Are you breaking bread as a family? What does your evening look like? What time do you go to bed? You watching shows with your loved one? Your favorite show with your loved one? You going to a basketball game? What does your perfect average day look like? And you list that out. Right? I'm not just talking about this big vision on a big vision board. No, what does your perfect average day look like? Right? And then what you do is you compare that to tomorrow or to this past day. And you start to see, wow, there's huge gaps. There's huge gaps between where I am and my perfect average day. And that's not a bad thing. That's just a starting point. You say, okay, what can I do? Where do I have control? Where do I have power to start to shift the day that I just experienced today towards my perfect average day? Oh, I can actually get up at 7. I can get up at 6, right? I can get up at 6. If I get up at 6, that'll match what my perfect average day says I want, right? And then you say, okay, what did I say I was going to do in my perfect average day? I said I was going to work out for 30 minutes. I can do that. I can do that. And I'm starting to move towards my perfect average day. Mark put beach run, wake up with my wife, kiss my children, breakfast, take my daughters to school, work for some hours, make love to my wife. That's what I'm talking about. Be detailed and specific. 50 Shades of Grey, right? And you start moving your life from where it is today to toward your perfect average day, one step at a time. Perhaps you can't quit your job today and start a company and this and that, but you can take control over your mornings and your evenings, right? You can create boundaries around work and take control of your mornings and evenings and start there. And then once you do that and you start to experience your power to create the life that you want, then you might consider shifting over into entrepreneurship or another form of work or another company that's going to allow you to be more of who you are. In fact, I was talking to my team today and we were talking about how do we define freedom. And freedom is actually the ability to be your whole self at all times. It's the ability to be your whole self at all times. There's a lot of people who go to work, whether they're going to a company or to their own company, right? Their own company, and what they do is they leave half of themselves in the passenger seat. They leave half of themselves in the passenger seat, and they drag the other half of themselves into the office. That in that moment, regardless of how much money they're making, what their title is, they are not free because they aren't allowed to be their whole self in that environment. In this environment that they've chosen. There's only been one moment in my life, and for those of you who know my story, there's only been one moment in my life where I haven't had choice. And that was the moment that I got held up at gunpoint. Beyond that, every other choice I take responsibility for. Whether I was conscious of the choice or it was a subconscious choice, I have to take responsibility for it. Besides that one moment where I was held up at gunpoint, where I didn't feel like I had any choice, that was the only moment in my life I felt helpless. And there's some of us who are out here justifying jobs that we hate and things of that nature. We're justifying jobs that we hate and things of that nature, saying, oh, I can't leave, I can't do this. Yes, you can. If you really want to, you can. Is somebody holding you up at gunpoint? No. And I can say that because I've been held up at gunpoint. If nobody is holding you up at gunpoint, you can do something different. You do have choice in every single moment. I think it's Esther Hicks, or I don't know if it's Course in Miracles or Esther Hicks. One of them talks about in any given moment, you have the power to choose again. Yeah, the choice may be hard, but you have the power to choose again. If you wanted to, your life could look 360 degrees different tomorrow if you just made some choices tonight. And actually, not just choices, but you actually made decisions. There's a difference between a choice and a decision. A choice is very cerebral, right? A choice is in your head. It doesn't become a decision until you actually take action. We use the word choice and decision synonymously, but they're actually two different things, right? A choice is in your head, so I can make a choice to put on a black shirt, right? But it doesn't become a decision until I actually take action, thus cutting off the possibility of wearing a different color shirt, right? So yes, it's important to make intentional choices, but once you do that, you have to actually make decisions, right? And it's really hard to, what we tend to rely on is self-discipline. We try to get free by relying on self-discipline. It's almost impossible to discipline ourselves. Some people have higher degrees of self-discipline than others, but you want to know what holds us accountable? Events that involve other people. Events that involve other people. Other people hold us accountable. We have this weird psychology about ourselves where we're more comfortable disappointing ourselves than we are other people. So rather than look at that as a negative thing, let's just use it to our advantage and get other people involved in the goals that we have for our life. If you want to work out and you want to be more healthy, then go pay for a physical trainer. If you can't pay for a physical trainer, find a friend, and maybe it's not a social friend. Maybe it's a successful friend, and there is a distinction between those two. I'm not going to get into that tonight. Go find somebody who also wants to work out and have them meet you there at 6:30 at the gym. Because when you know somebody else is going to be there to show up on your behalf, you will show up in a more powerful way than you show up for yourself. On top of that, when somebody else is there holding you accountable, what happens is, let's say they're like, give me as many push-ups as you can. And on your own, you would only be able to do maybe 12 push-ups. But when you have somebody else there saying, give me 3 more, all of a sudden that 12 becomes 15. But if you were there at the gym alone, you would have stopped at 12. But because somebody was there holding space for you and being present for you and believing for you when you didn't believe in yourself, all of a sudden you pumped out 15. So that workout that you try to do on your own was actually more effective, because we know that the burn actually occurs in the last sets, the last reps, where the stretching and the muscles tear the greatest. It's almost impossible, because we have this internal desire to be comfortable and avoid pain. It's hard. It's almost impossible for us to push ourselves to our limits. We actually need other people. We have to create situations and environments to push ourselves to our limits, because it's almost impossible for us to do it on our own. So if you're out here navigating on your own and trying to make it happen on your own, you got to find a mastermind. Right? It doesn't have to be the traditional form of a mastermind of 4 to 5 people coming together on a bi-weekly or monthly basis, but you got to find a crew of people who is going to support you in your success, who's going to hold you accountable, who won't take your BS, who won't take your excuses, but to say, hey, you wanted this, and I want whatever you want for yourself, and you not showing up for yourself right now, and I'm showing up for you until you show up for yourself. That's the kind of friends we need. And this may not be the person you go to the club with. It's not the person you hang out with and watch football with or go shopping with or whatever it is. This may be somebody completely different. They might not even be in your life right now, but you should actually call for them. You should actually hold space for them. You should be looking for them and seeking them. Right? It's time to surround ourselves with people who are going to challenge us. Many of the people I know, smart people, we're the smartest in our crew. We're the smartest in our crew. And 2 things happen when you're the smartest in your crew. One, you don't grow. And while you try to pull everybody up, they're pulling you down. And it's not intentional. They're not doing it to sabotage you. But it's because, as Jim Rohn said, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so if you are the smartest in your crew, that's cool. Keep the crew. I'm not saying delete people out of your cell phone and cut them out of your life, but you also need to have another crew who's actually lifting you up. While you're lifting up your crew, you need to find another crew that's actually lifting you up. And then while you're being lifted up, guess who also gets lifted up? Your other crew, your original crew, right? So, yeah, man, just wanted to go in. Again, for those of you just joining, we aren't the slaves. SLAVE stands for steadily living above value earned. Right? If you have debt on an economic level, you are probably in a position of slavery right now, to interest, to banks, to money, to your own desires. I wanted this car, I wanted this house, I wanted this before I earned it, right? But that's just one level of slavery. The other level of slavery is spiritual. And so one is economic, one is spiritual. The spiritual one is when people are moving through the world. The definition of slave on a spiritual level is somebody who is taking more from life than they are giving. They're seeking to take more from life than they are giving, right? And so there's a lot of people who are quote unquote masters from an economic standpoint who are balling, right? Assets are looking good. But on a spiritual standpoint, in order to earn those assets, or I wouldn't even call it earn, in order to get those assets, they had to take more from life than they were giving. And I am really concerned about my spiritual bank account. I don't know about you, but I am really concerned about my spiritual bank account. I want that to be more abundant than my economic bank account. And in fact, if you live rightly, those two things can correlate, where your spiritual bank account and your economic bank account grow hand in hand. I think that's what we all want. So that was it. I just had to say that. I see some familiar faces, some UCLA folk out here. My mastermind group, the focus group, love, my team showed up. I don't know how Facebook sends these out and how people get informed, but I trust that whoever was here was meant to be here. I hope you got something from it. I'll be doing more of this. I've been contemplating freedom a lot lately, and I have some deep insights and thoughts and frameworks that I want to share to help you get free, because I feel really free. I'm not rich, but I feel really free right now, and I want as many of us to be as free as possible. It sucks to be free alone. I'll be real with you. It sucks to be free alone. When I can't, I'm free and I want to go play basketball in the middle of the day, but I ain't got no homies who are free. So they can't play basketball in the middle of the day because they're working a traditional 9 to 5, or most of my homies aren't even working 9 to 5. They're working like a 8 to 8 because they got their MBA or they went to law school and they just getting worked by the firm. So I just know that freedom alone sucks, and so I just know I got to take as many people with me as possible. I know some of you aren't here in Brooklyn, but I'm just trying to find a group of folks who want to be free, and that's going to become my new network. And so I got that with the focus group, with my mastermind, a group of us who get together consistently. But I'm also just reaching out to others, because it's about that time. It's time to be free. It's not get free. You're already free. It's just our awareness of it. And once we get aware that we are already free and already have the power and already have everything that's within us and already have a spiritual energy and support of whatever it is that we are designed to do, whatever our purpose is, it's about being free, not getting free. All right. So with that, I want to send my love, and I'll just sign off with this quote that hit me the other day. Is, a lot of us are out here giving our 2 cents, right? And I'm challenging you to stop giving away your 2 cents when you have a gold mind. Stop giving away your 2 cents when you have a gold mind. It's gold in here. It's gold in here. And we're out here giving away our 2 cents, selling our time for wholesale prices to companies and to other people and organizations. You got to recognize, the more you recognize that you have a gold mine and can create whatever it is that you want, it'll change the game. It'll change the game for you. Even if you do decide to be an employee, remember that an employee is an entrepreneur with one big an entrepreneur with one big client. An employee is an entrepreneur with one big client, and if you lose that big client, it's gonna be a sad day, right? So an employee, we're all already entrepreneurs. An employee is simply an entrepreneur with one big client, right? And so I want you to be able to create money on demand. I want you to recognize your value. I want your joy to not fluctuate with the economy. I want what you want for yourself. But one of the biggest obstacles to people getting free is that they don't really know what they want. That's actually the first step. It's actually easier for us to say what we don't want, and that's actually the first step I encourage people to do. List all the things that you don't want, and then take the polar opposite of it. List all the things that you don't want first, and then get clear on what you want. You ask people what they want, and they're like, it's very vague. I want happiness. I want joy. Okay, what does that look like in your perfect average day? What does that look like on a daily basis? Right? And so one of the things that's stopping us from getting free is getting clear on what we want. And building up that desire, not the desire that you become slave to, but that desire to create something and actually to give more. Because I think you'll find that the world's most successful people, the world's most successful people that we respect, they created more value than they took, meaning that they became successful by helping other people become successful. And so the incentives are there for us. We just have to trust them and move in alignment with them. So just want to say good night. Check me out, my Facebook page. I think I'm going to be doing these on my Facebook page instead of my personal page. I might make my personal page private. So that's facebook.com/Julian, Julien, Gordon, and like that page, and look for the Facebook Lives there. I did one earlier today asking, are we free? And it was prompted by my daughter being homesick and me being free enough to be here with her. And I know I'm fortunate. I know that everyone, there's some people who would panic if their kid got sick or send their kid to school. You can't send your kid to school to make other kids sick because you're afraid you might get fired. That's not cool. And so I don't want those situations to occur. So that prompted that, and I did it on my Facebook page as opposed to my Facebook profile. So good night, everyone. Wishing you much love and more freedom. And we'll talk to you soon. All right? Much love. Peace.